close your eyes and let the present day dissolve, curling away like thin blue smoke in a quiet, sun-drenched room. We are traveling back, not through space, but through the golden, heavy layers of time, until the very air around you feels thicker, sweeter, and the world hums with a different kind of analog energy. Listen to that mechanical click. It is the sound of June, 1984. The year itself feels like a vast, unwritten promise, a sprawling, neon-tinted horizon where everything is still waiting to happen, and no one is in a hurry to reach the end. You can feel the sun on the back of your neck, a steady, unwavering heat that seems to sink deep into your very bones, grounding you in this specific, fragile slice of summer. You are standing on the edge of a new chapter, dressed in a sun-faded counselor tee with those iconic red ringer sleeves that have seen better days. The fabric is thin, soft against your skin, smelling faintly of lemon laundry detergent, and the distant, ghost-like scent of last night's wood smoke. This is the uniform of a person with no responsibilities other than to simply exist in the moment, to watch the shadows grow long over the ancient pines, and to let the music lead the way into the unknown. You reach down to your hip, your fingers finding the familiar, slightly warm plastic of your silver Walkman. It is a solid, honest piece of machinery, a rectangular brick that feels like a heavy treasure chest clipped to your waist. There is something so intentional about it, something so tactile that the modern world has long since forgotten. You aren't just scrolling through an endless, flickering list of names. You are holding a physical manifestation of your mood, a reel of magnetic ribbon that holds your memories in place. You press the mechanical stop button with a heavy metallic clack that echoes slightly in the still air, then pop the cassette door open. The faint scent of aged plastic and the metallic tang of the tape heads waft up to meet you. You flip the cassette over, side B, the side with the songs that feel like secrets, and push it back into its cradle. When you press play, there is a distinct, rhythmic thud of the gears engaging, a vibration you can feel in your thumb, followed by that beautiful, comforting, low-frequency hiss. It is the sound of the magnetic tape spinning into life, a soft white noise that tells you the journey has officially begun. You slide the headphones into place, the thin metal band resting weightlessly across the top of your head, and the bright orange foam pads pressing softly, warmly against your ears. Suddenly, the world around you becomes a silent film, and the music is the only thing that remains real. The synthesizer notes begin to swell, bright and shimmering like light hitting water, layering over the steady driving pulse of a drum machine. For a heartbeat, you feel like the protagonist of a movie that hasn't been edited yet, a story where the ending is still miles and miles away. This music is your sanctuary, a velvet curtain pulled shut against the noise of the world. It filters out the heavy expectations that have been piling up since your graduation ceremony, those long, echoing speeches about the future. It silences the nagging questions about which university you will attend, what career you will choose, and who you are supposed to be once the summer ends. In this 1984 portal, those questions simply don't have enough oxygen to breathe. Here, you are defined only by the dust on your sneakers and the height of the trees. The orange foam of your headphones creates a soft, safe barrier between you and the rush of reality, letting you observe the world without having to participate in its frantic pace. You watch the way the heat ripples off the distant pavement, a liquid distortion that makes the road look like it is melting into the deep green of the forest. You aren't just listening to a song, you are shedding your old life like a heavy winter coat. With every revolution of those tiny plastic reels, a piece of your past identity falls away, leaving you light, unburdened, and ready to be filled with the quiet magic of Sunset Cove. The gravel beneath your feet is a chorus of small, sharp sounds, each step a deliberate, grounding anchor to the earth. You look down at your sneakers, once a crisp, clean white, now a storied shade of gray and tan, mapped with the dust of a dozen different summer paths. They represent a freedom that only this time of year can provide. There is a smudge of emerald green on the side from a lawn you ran across last week, a dark scuff on the toe from a late-night walk to the edge of the pier. They are the shoes of a wanderer, someone who is perfectly comfortable in the silent spaces between destinations. As the sun begins its slow, agonizingly beautiful descent toward the jagged tree line, the light turns a deep, bruised purple at the edges of the sky, while the center remains a fiery, molten gold. This is the light of 1984, thick, nostalgic, and seemingly eternal. It is the kind of light that makes you believe that this summer will never actually have to end, that the tape will just keep looping forever, and you will stay exactly this age, in exactly this age, in exactly this moment, suspended in a golden amber of peace. The music in your ears begins to drift now, the high-energy pop fading slowly into a more melodic atmospheric track. The bright synthesized chords are being replaced by a slower, deeper rhythm that matches the pace of your own breathing. The hiss of the tape remains a constant, soothing heartbeat beneath the melody, a reminder that even in the quietest moments, there is a mechanism of care at work. You feel a sense of profound, unshakable safety here. The world feels smaller, more manageable, contained entirely within the physical borders of the camp and the 74 minutes of your favorite cassette. There are no screens to pull your attention away, no instant messages to disrupt the flow of your thoughts. There is only the wind whispering through the high branches of the pines, the smell of the coming evening, and the rhythmic, electronic pulse of the song in your ears. You are leaving the noise of civilization behind and stepping into the deep, welcoming silence of the woods. As the path begins to narrow, the music starts to retreat into the background, growing softer, as if the forest itself is leaning in to absorb the sound. The transition is seamless, a slow, beautiful crossfade from the artificial world to the organic one. You reach down and turn the volume dial on the side of the Walkman, lowering the sound until the music is just a ghost of a melody, a faint shimmer of sound that blends perfectly with a low, rhythmic hum coming from the distance. It is a steady, vibrating drone that you can feel vibrating in your chest before you can truly hear it, with your ears the sound of tires rolling slowly over old, sun-cracked asphalt, moving deeper into the long shadows of the valley. The road ahead is no longer a straight, predictable line. It begins to curve and sway, bowing to the ancient will of the towering trees that stand like silent sentinels on either side. The sunlight is being cut into long, thin, flickering strips by the trunks of the pines, creating a hypnotic, strobe-like effect as you move forward. The world is darkening, the vibrant, hot colors of the afternoon deepening into the cool, quiet shades of twilight. The heat is still there, but it has lost its aggressive edge, becoming a soft, enveloping warmth that feels like an invitation to rest. You follow the curve of the road as it disappears into the emerald depths of the forest, the orange foam of your headphones still warm against your ears, but your attention is now fixed on what lies beyond the next bend, where the trees finally part to reveal the hidden, shimmering heart of the cove. The low, rhythmic thrum of the engine becomes the new heartbeat of your world, a steady, low-frequency vibration that travels up through the rubber soles of your sneakers, climbs through your ankles, and settles deep into the marrow of your bones. It is a grounding hum, a constant mechanical purr that tells your mind it is time to let go of the shore. You are leaning your head against the window of the wood-paneled station wagon, a classic, heavy-duty relic of the early 80s, with that iconic faux birch siding that has begun to peel and curl at the edges from years of enduring the relentless summer sun and the biting salt of coastal winters. The glass of the window is surprisingly cool against your forehead, offering a sharp, refreshing contrast to the humid golden afternoon air that swirls through the half-open chrome vents in a chaotic dance. As the van rolls over the uneven, sun-cracked pavement of the winding mountain road, you feel every gentle dip and slow swell of the earth beneath the tires, a swaying, fluid motion that feels less like driving and more like being rocked in a massive, slow-moving wooden crate. The sound of the heavy tires on the old asphalt is a continuous, shushing whisper, a thick layer of white noise that effectively drowns out the lingering, stressful echoes of your hometown, replacing them with the meditative, unhurried hum of the long journey toward the trees. Inside the cabin of the van, the atmosphere is a thick, nostalgic soup, heavy with the scent of sun-warmed vinyl seats, the medicinal tang of copper-toned sunscreen, and the faint, sugary sweetness of orange soda escaping from an open tab. It is a private capsule, a pocket of 1984 moving silently through the vast green cathedral of the ancient forest. To your left, Matthew is draped over the driver's seat with a relaxed, effortless kind of grace that only comes with the start of a long vacation. He is wearing a sleeveless gray jersey, the kind with deep-cut armholes that show off the solid tan he's already earned working outdoors since graduation day. His varsity jacket, a heavy mass of wool and leather, is tossed carelessly into the footwell, forgotten in the heat. He drives with just one hand resting lightly on the thin plastic wheel, his fingers tapping out a slow, erratic and silent rhythm against the cracked dashboard. Beside him, Paige is the very picture of organized anticipation. She is staring intently at a massive, fraying paper map that covers her lap, her brow furrowed in deep concentration as she occasionally reaches up to push a stray lock of sun-bleached hair behind her ear. Her oversized denim jacket is a canvas of her personality, covered in dozens of colorful enamel pins, rainbows, neon lightning bolts, and logos of underground bands you've only ever heard on late-night college radio stations. And then there is Joey, sprawled across the wide back bench among a chaotic, soft pile of nylon sleeping bags, tangled jumper cables, and overflowing coolers. He is wearing a Hawaiian shirt that is aggressively bright, a clash of pink hibiscus and teal leaves, his head tilted all the way back as he tries to catch the strongest breeze from the window. A lopsided, permanent grin is plastered on his face as he narrates a long-winded joke that no one is quite listening to, but everyone is deeply comforted by. These are your people, your fellow misfits, the ones who silently agreed that the pressure of the real world could wait for just one more golden season. Watching them now, framed by the shifting, dappled light of the passing trees, you feel a surge of quiet, unspoken gratitude. There is no desperate need for heavy conversation here. The shared motion of the van is a language all its own. You watch the way the afternoon sunlight catches the chrome trim of the dashboard, reflecting tiny, dancing sparks of light across the fabric of the ceiling. Every few miles, the van hits a small, weathered pothole, and the entire vehicle groans with a friendly, heavy mechanical rattle, the sound of old metal, tired springs, and shared history. It is a deeply comforting sound, a reminder that this machine has carried 1,000 stories before yours, and is perfectly prepared to carry yours too. The world outside the window has become a blurred, hypnotic tapestry of emerald ferns, silver-barked birches, and ancient moss-covered oaks. It is a green wall that seems to rise up higher and higher with every mile, physically protecting you from the noise and the complications of the life you left behind on the other side of the ridge. You find yourself drifting deeper into the kinetic rhythm of the drive, the slow, side-to-side swaying of the van, coaxing the very last remnants of tension from your shoulders and neck. Your eyes track the telephone wires as they rise and fall in a rhythmic, undulating wave against the pale blue sky, a visual pulse that matches the steady, hypnotic thump-thump of the tires passing over the expansion joints in the mountain road. It is a trance-like experience, a slow-motion transit where the concept of the destination begins to matter far less than the simple, pure feeling of being in between. The wind whipping through the narrow gap in your window carries the sharp, clean scent of pine sap and cold, damp earth, a refreshing breath that clears the last of the city's gray dust from the back of your throat. You reach down and adjust the volume dial on your Walkman once more, turning it lower and lower until the music is nothing more than a faint, shimmering texture in the air, a layer of thin silk draped over the rugged, rhythmic growl of the engine. The road begins to steepen now, the engine downshifting with a throaty, laboring roar that sends a new, more intense vibration through the foam of the seat cushions. You are climbing higher into the heart of the mountains, leaving the humid valley floor behind and ascending into the thinner, crisper air of the highlands. The trees lean in closer to the road, their heavy branches occasionally brushing against the metal roof of the van with a soft, sweeping scritch sound that reminds you of a secret being whispered in a darkened hallway. Joey has finally fallen into a deep silence, lulled into a trance by the vibration, his head resting heavily against a rolled-up sleeping bag. Even Paige has finally set aside her map, leaning her head back against the vinyl headrest and closing her eyes, letting the rhythmic strobing of the golden sunlight wash over her closed eyelids. In this shared heavy silence, the van feels like a small, safe, wooden-sided island drifting through a vast and trackless sea of ancient timber. You feel a profound sense of anonymity here, a shedding of old skins. Out here, in the shadow of the peaks, you aren't the person your teachers expected you to be, or the child your parents still try to see. You are just a passenger in a wood-paneled wagon, moving through the thick heart of the summer. Suddenly, the dense, suffocating canopy of trees breaks wide open, and for a fleeting, breathtaking second, the entire world expands into infinity. To your right, the ground simply drops away into a vast, shimmering valley, and there, nestled perfectly in the crook of the jagged mountains like a hidden, sapphire jewel, is the lake. It is a deep, impossible shade of blue, its surface scattered with a million silver scales of light from the late afternoon sun. It looks cold, deep, and ancient. But before your mind can fully grasp the magnificent scale of it, the van plunges back into the cool, dark shadows of the pine forest, the trees swallowing the view once more with a suddenness that feels like a curtain being drawn. The road begins to level out, the engine's laboring roar settling back into a satisfied, quiet purr as the van finds its stride again. You feel a subtle change in the very atmosphere inside the cabin, a tightening of excitement, a collective realization among your friends that the threshold of the camp is finally, truly near. Matthew slows the van down to a crawl, the heavy tires crunching loudly over a thick bed of fallen brown needles and dry, snapping twigs. Ahead, rising slowly out of the swirling clouds of red dust kicked up by the wheels, a weathered wooden sign emerges from the overgrown greenery like a ghost from another era. The paint is gray and cracked, the letters carved deep and wide into the aromatic cedar, Sunset Cove, S. 1924. The sign is draped in a heavy living veil of dark ivy, looking less like a man-made marker and more like something the forest itself grew to mark its territory. As the van passes slowly beneath the heavy timber archway of the front gate, you feel a phantom weight, a pressure you didn't even know you were carrying, lift completely off your chest. This is the boundary line. This is the magical place where the complicated rules of the outside world dissolve into the shadows. The van rolls to a gentle, rocking stop in a wide clearing of packed iron-red dirt. For a long, heavy moment, no one in the car moves a muscle. The engine continues to idle for a few final, shuddering seconds, a low vibration that you can feel in your teeth before it slowly peters out. Matthew reaches forward and turns the silver key. With one final, shuddering gasp from the carburetor and a soft metallic click, the engine cuts off entirely. The silence that follows is absolute, staggering, and heavy. It isn't the empty, hollow silence of a lonely room, but a living, breathing, vibrant silence filled with the incredibly distant, mournful call of a loon and the soft, collective sigh of the wind moving through the high, distant canopy of the pines. You can hear the tink of the engine block beginning to cool down in the mountain air, a small, rhythmic, metallic snapping as the intense heat leaves the heavy iron. It is the most peaceful, domestic sound you have ever heard, the sound of a long-distance machine finally at rest. You sit there for a heartbeat longer than necessary, letting the stillness of the woods settle over your skin like a fine, cool mist. The journey is officially over, and the summer has truly begun. The cabin of the van feels strangely large and spacious now that the constant vibration has stopped. You reach back into the shadows of the footwell, your hand brushing against the rough, familiar canvas of your old duffel bag. You can feel the lumpy shapes of your belongings through the fabric, the extra cassette tapes in their plastic cases, the stack of comic books, the heavy wool sweaters meant for the freezing nights by the lake. As you heave the bag onto your shoulder, the long metal zipper makes a sharp, biting, rhythmic sound in the quiet air. You step out of the van, your dusty sneakers hitting the solid, unyielding earth with a soft thud, and as you shut the heavy metal door with a dull, echoing whump that rings through the trees, you leave the last of the open road behind you. The air out here is fundamentally different. It is cooler, thinner, smelling of deep, cold water and ancient, rotting wood. You take a long, deep breath, hitch the heavy strap of the bag higher on your shoulder, and turn your gaze toward the cluster of dark, silent wooden cabins waiting patiently in the long, violet shadows of the trees. You reach out and grasp the heavy, hand-forged iron handle of the door to cabin 8. The metal is cool and slightly textured under your palm, holding the chill of the previous night even in the afternoon heat. As you push, the door yields with a long, low, complaining groan, a sound of dry wood meeting, dry wood that seems to vibrate through the soles of your sneakers. It is a slow, rhythmic creak that echoes back from the dense wall of pine trees behind you, a sound that says this place hasn't been disturbed in a very long time. Stepping over the threshold, you are immediately met by a wall of still, pressurized air. It isn't the suffocating heat of the outside world, but a settled, ancient coolness, filtered through the thick cedar logs that have stood as silent sentinels of Sunset Cove for over 60 years. The transition is physical. You can feel the humidity of the road falling away from your skin, replaced by the dry, scent-heavy atmosphere of the sanctuary. The smell is the first thing that truly anchors you here. It is a dense, layered perfume of history. There is the sharp, resinous tang of aged cedar, the base note of every memory you've ever had of this place. Layered on top is the sweet, dusty scent of cotton sleeping bags that have been compressed in wooden trunks for months, their fibers holding the ghost-faint smell of last summer's laundry detergent. There's a hint of dried pine needles, a touch of old paper, and the unmistakable, clean aroma of cold lake water that seems to have seeped into the very grain of the floorboard. You stand there for a moment, just breathing, letting your lungs adjust to this new, slower oxygen. Each breath feels more substantial than the last, a rhythmic expansion and contraction that tells your nervous system it is finally, officially time to rest. The floorboards beneath you offer a symphony of small domestic protests. Each step you take toward the back of the room is marked by a hollow wooden thump and a sympathetic squeak from the joists below. It is a predictable, comforting rhythm. You aren't walking on the sterile, silent floors of a modern home. You are moving across a living, breathing structure. The light in cabin 8 is a masterpiece of shadow and amber. It doesn't pour in, it filters. The dusty mesh of the window screens catches the sunlight, breaking it into a million tiny shimmering diamonds before it hits the floor in soft violet-gray pools. You feel tucked in, shielded, as if the cabin itself is a heavy wooden blanket wrapped around your shoulders to keep the noise of 1984 at bay. You approach the bunk in the far corner, the one tucked beneath the low slope of the rafters. You heave your canvas duffel bag onto the mattress. The sound is a heavy, satisfying whump, followed by the metallic, melodic jingle of the zippers, and the faint clink of your spare cassette tapes bumping against each other inside the bag. You sit down on the edge of the bed, and the old metal springs offer a long, singing groan, a rhythmic, metallic sigh that settles as you find your balance. The mattress is firm, smelling of sun-dried grass and silence. For a long minute, you do nothing. You simply sit, your hands resting on your knees, watching the way the forest outside the screen door seems to shimmer in the heat haze, while you remain perfectly cool and perfectly still. Then, you begin the ritual. You reach into the side pocket of your bag, your fingers brushing against the rough canvas before finding the smooth, cool edge of your new comic book. You pull it out slowly. This is Midnight Howl, issue 24. The cover is a vibrant, electric clash of neon pinks and deep midnight blues, depicting a silhouette against a massive, stylized moon. In the dim light of the cabin, the colors seem to vibrate, almost glowing against the dark wood of the shelf. You run your thumb along the spine, feeling the tiny, rhythmic ridges of the staples and the way the paper gives slightly under your pressure. There is a specific tactile weight to a comic from this era, the way the ink feels slightly raised against the porous paper, creating a texture you can read with your skin as much as your eyes. You open the first page. The sound is a crisp, dry snap of aging paper, a small explosion of sound in the monumental silence of the room. Immediately, the scent of the printing press fills your personal space, that sharp, vinegary tang of fresh ink and cheap, yellowing pulp. It is the smell of escape. You trace the bold, hand-drawn lines of the first panel, marveling at the heavy use of shadows. The artist has used thick, black strokes to create a world of mystery, and in this cabin surrounded by real shadows, the boundaries between the page and reality begin to blur in the most comfortable way. You aren't just reading a story, you are submerged in it. The turning of each page becomes a rhythmic, meditative act. Flip, dot, snap, breathe. The world of high school graduation, of the terrifyingly wide future, of the people you are supposed to impress, it all vanishes behind the ink and the pulp. As you lean back against the cool, solid cedar log of the wall, your shoulder blades find the smooth, rounded contours of the wood. Your hand happens to drift upward, brushing against the underside of the top bunk's frame. You expect the feel of rough-sawn timber, but instead, your fingertips find a series of smooth, deliberate channels. You lean in, your eyes adjusting to the deep amber shadows under the bunk. There, carved into the very heart of the cedar, is a message from another time. Elias Thorne, 1965. The letters are deep and wide, the work of a patient hand and a sharp blade. Beside the name is a small, crude drawing of a wolf, its eyes slanted and mysterious. You run your finger through the name, feeling the smoothness of the wood where the sap once ran nearly 20 years ago. This isn't just a carving, it is a ghost print. It is a reminder that this cabin is a vessel, a wooden ship that has carried hundreds of dreamers through their own summers. You feel a profound sense of safety in this continuity. You aren't alone in your uncertainty about the future. You are just the latest in a long line of counselors who have sat on this exact bed, felt this exact wood, and wondered the same things. The weight of your own life feels lighter now, shared with the memory of Elias and whoever came before him. You are part of the history of Sunset Cove, a small quiet thread in a tapestry of pine and water. You lie back fully on the mattress, your head resting on the crook of your arm. The ceiling is a landscape of knots and grain, a wooden map that your eyes follow until they begin to grow heavy. The sunlight hitting the window screen has created a thick, golden pillar of light in the center of the room. Within that light, a million tiny dust motes are performing a slow, silent ballet, rising and falling on invisible currents of air. You watch them, mesmerized by their lack of urgency. They move with the grace of falling snow, drifting in a world where time has no meaning. The rhythm of the forest outside, the distant oceanic shush of the wind in the high canopy, becomes a natural, ancient lullaby that vibrates through the logs of the cabin and into your very soul. The silence is absolute, yet it is a full silence. You can hear the cabin settling as the afternoon shadows deepen. A soft pop from a joint in the rafters. the faint melodic whistle of the breeze catching the edge of a screen. You feel tucked in, shielded by 60 years of history and 4 inches of solid cedar. You are safe. You are hidden. You are exactly where you are meant to be. The comic book rests on your chest, rising and falling with the steady, deep rhythm of your breath, a physical anchor to the world of play and imagination. You close your eyes, letting the golden light behind your eyelids turn to a soft, comforting dark. Just as the edges of your consciousness begin to fray and dissolve into sleep, a new sound emerges from the silence. It is tiny at first, almost a vibration rather than a noise. A sharp, repetitive scritch, 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 coming from directly beneath the heavy floorboards, not 6 inches from where you are lying. It is a frantic, purposeful sound, the sound of small, sharp claws working against dry, aged timber. You go perfectly still, your breath hitching in your throat. The scratching stops instantly, as if the thing below is listening to the silence you just made. After a long, agonizing heartbeat, it starts again, more insistent this time, accompanied by a faint, muffled thud that sends a tiny shiver through the mattress. The safe, warm air of the cabin feels suddenly, inexplicably different. The shadows in the corners seem to lean inward, and the golden light of 1984 feels just a little more fragile than it did a moment ago. The world beneath the floorboards falls into a sudden vacuum-like silence, the very instant the heavy cedar door of cabin 8 begins its slow, agonizingly musical rotation on its iron hinges. It is a sound you have come to recognize as the cabin's own voice, a long, low-frequency wooden groan that seems to vibrate through the marrow of your bones. Framed against the blinding liquid gold of the late June sun is a silhouette that feels like a deliberate, beautiful bruise on the face of a perfect summer afternoon. Raven steps inside, and the atmosphere of the room undergoes a physical shift. The sweltering, pollen-heavy heat of 1984 is pushed back by a wave of something cool, sharp, and smelling intensely of clove cigarettes, vintage patchouli, and the metallic, ozone-heavy scent of a distant thunderstorm that hasn't yet broken over the valley. She is a striking, poetic defiance of everything this camp stands for. While the world outside is a riot of primary colors and neon spandex, Raven is a study in monochromatic depth. She wears an oversized black band t-shirt, the cotton so thin and well-worn from 100 midnight washes that it drapes over her frame like dark water. Her heavy combat boots, laced tight with frayed nylon strings, hit the floorboards with a rhythmic, grounded thud that feels more real than any sound you've heard all day. She doesn't speak. At first, she moves with a slow, feline deliberation, crossing the small space to the bunk directly opposite yours. The light from the window catches the jagged, uneven edges of her hair, a chaotic masterpiece of midnight blue and deep raven black that seems to absorb the sunlight rather than reflect it. She drops her battered black backpack onto the dusty floor, and the sound is a complex mechanical symphony. The heavy clatter of safety pins, the sharp jingle of silver chains, and the muffled thump of heavy textbooks hitting the wood. She turns to look at you, and for a long, suspended moment, the air between you becomes thick and pressurized. There is a faint, knowing smirk playing at the corners of her dark painted lips, a silent acknowledgement that you are both participants in the same secret. You are both misfits, two people who have found themselves caught in the amber of this summer, not quite fitting the mold of the cheerful, sun-kissed counselors the brochures promised. She sits down on her mattress, her movements fluid and unhurried, crossing her legs in a way that suggests she has all the time in the world. She reaches into the deep pocket of her black denim vest and pulls out a small, brushed silver lighter. The sound of the lid flipping open and shut snick-pop becomes a new, rhythmic pulse in the quiet room. It is a hypnotic, metallic heartbeat that anchors the silence. Sunset Cove. she says finally. Her voice is a low, husky alto, vibrating in the still air with the resonance of a cello string played in a hollow stone hall. It's a graveyard for people who aren't ready to grow up yet, isn't it? A place where we can pretend that the clock stopped somewhere between graduation and the rest of our lives. Her words aren't cynical. They are delivered with a weary, ancient kind of wisdom that feels far older than her 18 years. She leans her head back against the dark log wall, her hair fanning out like a dark stain against the honey-colored cedar. You find yourself responding in a voice you barely recognize, low, steady, and stripped of all the defensive layers you've spent years building. In the sanctuary of Cabin 8, the conversation turns into a slow, rhythmic decompression of the soul. You talk about the terrifying, monolithic weight of the future, that abstract, looming monster that everyone expects you to face with a smile. You speak about the specific, hollow ache of graduation, the feeling of standing on a pier and watching the ship of your childhood sail away while you are still standing on the shore. Raven listens with an intensity that is rare, her dark eyes reflecting the fading golden light of the window like two pools of obsidian. She speaks of the secret philosophy of the 1980s, youth, the quiet internal rebellion against the plastic, prepackaged perfection of the world outside. Everyone is so desperate to be a bright neon sign, she whispers, the silver lighter still clicking rhythmically in her hand. But there's a profound power in the shadows. There's a freedom in being the one who remains invisible while everyone else is exhausting themselves trying to be seen. The shadows in the cabin are beginning to stretch now, long and skeletal, reaching across the floorboards to touch the edges of your bunk. The fierce gold of the afternoon is deepening into a rich burnt amber, catching the silver of Raven's rings and making them shimmer like cold sparks of starlight in the growing gloom. She leans forward slightly, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that makes the fine hair on your arms stand up. You know, nobody here really knows who I am, she says, a flicker of something raw and deeply human crossing her face. They see the black lace and the heavy boots, and they think they've read the whole book. But my name isn't really Raven. It's Claire. Or at least, it was, before I realized that Claire was just a character someone else wrote for me. She pauses, and a small secret smile appears, a crack in the porcelain of her persona, and when the sun goes down, I'm not even Claire. I'm Nyx, a level 9 shadow sorceress. I carry a bag of holding filled with the discarded dreams of lost civilizations, and I have a 20-sided die that I'm convinced is possessed by a very bored, very ancient god. The revelation of her real self, the mundane name she discarded, and the powerful, mystical identity she inhabits in her mind, is a gift of immense, fragile trust. It is the ultimate truth of the 80s, that we are all just role-playing, all just trying on different masks and leather jackets until we find a version of ourselves that doesn't feel like a lie. You feel the weight of this secret settling into the grain of the wood, adding a new heavy layer to the thick aromatic air of the cabin. The room feels smaller now, more intimate, a wooden cocoon where the outside world has no vote and no voice. Raven's voice grows even softer, a mere vibration of sound that blends perfectly with the distant, oceanic rustle of the pine needles. We're all just playing a massive, high-stakes game of Dungeons and Dragons with our own lives, counselor. Rolling the dice in the dark and praying we don't land on a critical failure before the summer is over. As her words hang in the air, the silence returns, but it is fundamentally different than before. It is warmer, heavier, filled with the comfortable rhythmic presence of two people who have found a temporary peace in the same shadow. The ticking of the clock on the far wall, the slow rhythmic settling of the cabin logs as they adjust to the evening chill, the distant repetitive drumming of a woodpecker deep in the forest, it all merges into a single, low-frequency hum. Time has slowed to a crawl, each minute dripping away like thick, golden sap from a wounded pine tree. You feel a profound sense of belonging, a quiet, humming realization that Sunset Cove might not just be a place to hide from the future, but a place to finally be seen by someone who speaks your hidden, analog language. You watch the way her breath moves the fabric of her t-shirt, a steady, calm rhythm that eventually begins to match your own. The intimacy is so deep, so absolute, that the sudden, jarring sound from the outside world feels like a physical blow to your chest. From somewhere in the grassy open heart of the camp, the heavy bronze dinner bell begins to swing. It is a loud, rhythmic clang, 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 that shatters the twilight stillness and ripples through the cedar walls like a stone dropped into a mirror-still pond. The sound is ancient, metallic, and utterly commanding, a sharp, unavoidable reminder that even in this pocket of suspended time, there are schedules to keep, roles to play, and a communal life waiting for you in the light of the mess hall. The spell is broken. Raven blinks, the intense, mystical Nyx receding back behind the jagged blue hair and the practiced, defensive smirk of the goth girl. She stands up, her heavy boots thudding softly on the wood, and reaches for her backpack. The heavy rhythmic clatter of her chains is the final signal that the private world of Cabin 8 is dissolving. You stand as well, feeling a bit lightheaded, as if you've been underwater for a long time, and follow her toward the door, leaving the quiet, carved secrets of the bunk beds behind for the collective golden roar of the evening. The rhythmic bronze tolling of the dinner bell still echoes in the quiet inner chambers of your ears, a fading metallic vibration that seems to pulse in perfect time with your own slow and relaxed heartbeat as you follow Raven across the wide, grassy commons. The evening air is beginning to settle, the fierce and frantic heat of the day finally retreating deep into the cooling earth, replaced by a soft rising mist that smells of damp clover, wild mint, and the distant resinous tang of pine. You approach the great mess hall, a monumental and imposing piece of frontier architecture that stands as a silent wooden sentinel at the heart of the valley. It is a towering cathedral constructed entirely of dark hand-hewn cedar timber and massive, ancient field stones, each one painstakingly hauled from the cold lake bed over 60 long years ago. As you reach out and pull open one of the massive double-leaf oak doors, the air changes once again, welcoming you into a space that feels fundamentally different from the rest of the camp. It is warm, vibrant, and thick with the heavy swirling steam of 100 shared meals, a scent that is an intoxicating, deeply layered history of pure comfort. You can smell the seasoned cast iron of the kitchen, the savory, mouth-watering aroma of slow-roasted chicken, the buttery sweetness of fresh-baked cornbread, and that underlying, permanent perfume of the massive ancient pine logs that form the very skeleton and soul of the building. The hall is illuminated by long, flickering rows of amber-bulbed chandeliers that hang from the vaulted, shadow-drenched rafters like clusters of captive, golden stars. The light they cast is thick, honeyed, and heavy, softening the sharp edges of everything it touches and turning the air itself into a shimmering, golden liquid. It glints off the long, heavy oak tables that have been polished to a high, glass-like sheen by 60 generations of sliding cafeteria trays and resting, tired elbows. As you walk slowly toward your seat, you can see the incredibly intricate grain of the wood beneath the thick layers of varnish, vast, swirling patterns of dark and light brown that look like topographic maps of ancient, forgotten rivers or the colossal fingerprints of a giant. The floorboards beneath your feet offer a deep, hollow resonance with every step, a sound that tells you there is a vast, silent space beneath the wood, a secret basement filled with the echoes and shadows of every summer since the mid-1920s. You find your place among the group, the heavy wooden bench groaning with a familiar, low-frequency welcome as you settle in. There is a specific kind of acoustic magic in this hall, The high, arched ceilings catch the chaotic chatter of the other counselors and turn it into a soft, indistinct and rhythmic murmur, a white noise blanket of human presence that wraps around your table, making the world feel small, safe, and profoundly connected. High above the massive fieldstone fireplace, a collection of vintage taxidermy keeps a silent, glass-eyed watch over the evening's proceedings. There is a massive bull moose, its antlers sprawling like the jagged, prehistoric branches of an ancient oak, and a black bear frozen in a perpetual, dignified prowl across a high wooden ledge. These aren't trophies of a violent hunt, but rather the quiet, stoic guardians of the camp's deep and hidden lore. Their fur is dusty with the passage of many decades, holding within its fibers the silence and the secrets of the wilderness. You find yourself staring into the deep, crystalline amber eyes of the moose, feeling a strange, humming sense of continuity. This room has seen the transition of entire eras from the flickering silent films and delicate beaded flapper dresses of the roaring 20s to the neon sneakers, faded denim, and hissing synthesizer tapes of your own 1984. The walls are a living, breathing record, decorated with hundreds of framed black and white photographs that have yellowed into a beautiful sepia-toned haze. You see images of young men in heavy wool sweaters rowing long, elegant wooden boats, and girls in pleated skirts laughing by a shoreline that looks exactly the same today as it did then. The history here isn't in a book, it's in the very grain of the walls. Joey is already in his element, the bright teal and shocking pink of his Hawaiian shirt, flickering like a restless flame in the warm amber light. He is leaning far over the table, his voice dropping to a playful, rhythmic, and conspiratorial whisper, as he begins to recount the legendary recipe card prank of 1979. He tells the story with the perfect, practiced timing of a seasoned performer, his hands moving in wide, sweeping arcs that follow the imaginary path of the events through the air. He describes how a group of senior counselors, fueled by the manic boredom of a long, rainy week, managed to forge a series of official-looking, wax-sealed documents. They convinced the camp's notoriously grumpy and short-tempered head chef that Sunset Cove had been purchased by a mysterious Canadian maple syrup tycoon, who demanded that every single meal from the morning eggs to the evening stew be infused with at least 3 full cups of high-grade, greatest syrup. Joey describes the ensuing chaos in the kitchen with vivid sensory detail. The thick, cloying, and suffocating smell of burnt sugar that supposedly lingered in the rafters for 3 weeks, the sticky, rhythmic footprints on the stone floor, and the chef's legendary temper that finally snapped like a dry twig, resulting in a flying wooden rolling pin that, according to camp legend. As he reaches the climax of the story, the table erupts in a low, warm, and collective ripple of laughter. Not a sharp or jarring sound, but a soft, communal vibration that settles deep in your chest like a warm, soothing drink on a cold night. As the meal progresses and the initial, frantic hunger is replaced by a heavy, satisfied, and rhythmic lethargy, the conversation turns naturally toward the deeper, more mysterious history of the cove. Matthew, leaning back with his arms folded comfortably across his gray jersey, begins to talk about the camp's true origins. He speaks of a time in the mid-1920s when this place wasn't a camp at all, but an incredibly exclusive mountain retreat for the silent film stars and industrial titans of the East Coast. He describes a long-lost world of polished mahogany motorboats that cut through the mirror-like water like sharp knives, of women in white linen dresses reading poetry on the sun-bleached pier, and the scratchy, tinny, and rhythmic sound of jazz records, playing from hand-cranked gramophones under the vast canopy of stars. He tells of the Great Fire of 1932 that nearly turned this very hall to gray ash, and the mysterious anonymous benefactor who paid to have it rebuilt in total secret over a single, brutal, and snow-filled winter. The information is dense, heavy, and rich, a tapestry of names, dates, and forgotten scandals that keeps your mind gently and rhythmically occupied, moving from one historical image to the next, like the slow, hypnotic turning of a carousel. You can almost see the ghosts of the past moving through the flickering shadows of the rafters above, their voices muffled by 60 years of falling pine needles and drifting snow. The atmosphere in the hall begins to change as the heavy metal trays are finally cleared away. The air grows thicker, more contemplative, and significantly heavier as the lights are dimmed for the evening announcements. Raven leans in closer to the center of the table, the flickering amber light catching the silver chains at her throat as she lowers her voice to a frequency that seems to bypass your ears and speak directly to your subconscious mind. She begins to whisper of the howler, the central, haunting and ancient myth of the valley. It isn't a simple ghost story, she insists, her eyes wide, dark, and reflecting the firelight. It is something much older, something woven into the very mineral veins and tectonic shifts of the mountains. She describes a creature that is neither wolf nor man, a shifting liquid shadow that moves through the high, jagged ridges only when the moon is a thin, pale, and sharpened sliver of bone. She speaks of the singing stones on the far north shore that supposedly mark the howler's territory, and the way the mountain wind sounds different, hollow, musical, and rhythmic when it passes through the ancient trunks of the lightning-scarred cedars. The reveal of this legend doesn't bring a sharp or sudden fear, but rather a sense of profound, ancient, and comforting mystery. It adds a layer of wild, untamed, and timeless energy to the safe, domestic warmth of the hall, making the world of 1984 feel like a small, fragile, and precious lantern held against a vast and eternal dark. The sounds of the mess hall are shifting now, entering a new and final phase of the evening. The frantic, clattering energy of the dinner hour has dissolved into a slow, rhythmic, and oceanic hum of shared contentment. You can hear the distant, melodic clink, clink, clink of silverware being washed in the massive, industrial stainless steel sinks in the back, a domestic, metallic music that reinforces the total safety and stability of the building. The laughter at your table has become muffled, soft and distant, a warm collective glow that radiates from the center of the group, like the dying heat from a massive fireplace. You look at Paige, who is absent-mindedly tracing the intricate, swirling grain of the oak table with her fingernail, her eyes distant, peaceful, and completely lost in the rhythm of the stories. You look at Matthew and Joey, their faces softened, shadowed, and made noble by the amber light, the boisterous bravado of the afternoon, replaced by a quiet, shared, and unshakable belonging. The information density of the lore, the weight of the 60-year history, and the simple primal warmth of the community have created a perfect, heavy equilibrium. Your mind is full, your body is heavy with the meal and the mountain air, and the frantic, buzzing static of the outside world has been completely and utterly erased by the rhythmic storytelling of the cove. Through the high, narrow, and dusty windows near the ceiling, you see the very last of the molten gold and fiery orange vanish from the sky. The world outside is plunging into the blue hour, that fragile, magical, and silent transition, where the air turns a deep, electric indigo, and the shadows of the pines become indistinguishable from the night itself. The transition is seamless, silent, and absolute. Inside the hall, the amber chandeliers seem to glow even brighter and warmer in response, creating a golden wooden island of human warmth in a vast cold sea of rising dark. The fire in the great hearth has burned down to a magnificent pulsing pile of glowing red coals, radiating a slow, internal heat that you can feel on your cheeks and hands. You feel the magnetic pull of the evening, a shift in the room's energy that tells you the time for words and stories is drawing to a close. The communal roar of the mess hall is softening into a series of hushed, rhythmic whispers and the steady sound of heavy boots moving slowly, almost reluctantly, toward the exits. You stand up with the others, your movements feeling slow, heavy, and deliberate, as if you are moving through warm, thick water. The dark wood of the bench feels cool and solid as you leave it, a final tactile goodbye to the social center of the camp's life. As you walk toward the massive double doors, the sharp, bracing air from the forest begins to leak in through the cracks, a clean, sharp scent of cold lake water and rising mountain mist. You look back one last time at the moose, the bear, and the long, empty oak tables stretching away into the deep shadows. They will be here tomorrow and every day after. That, holding the secrets, the laughter, and the stories of 1984, until they too become part of the sepia-toned haze of history. You step out into the indigo chill of the blue hour, the heavy oak doors thudding shut behind you with a deep, echoing, and final sound that feels like a peaceful punctuation mark on the day. The grass of the commons is now silver with a heavy dew, and the path back to the cabins is a winding, rhythmic ribbon of shadow, leading you slowly toward the deep and dreamless rest you've been waiting for all day. The transition from the vibrant, amber-scented warmth of the great mess hall to the open night is a sudden, breathtaking plunge into a different world. As the heavy oak doors groan shut behind you, the sound is swallowed by a vacuum of silence so profound it feels as though the entire valley is holding its breath. The air has undergone a radical transformation. The sweltering pollen-heavy heat of the afternoon has retreated into the earth, replaced by a crisp, silver-edged coolness that tastes of deep lake water, damp moss, and the ancient, tectonic chill of granite stone. You find yourself walking away from the flickering yellow lanterns of the cabins, your sneakers making almost no sound on the lush dew-dampened grass as you move instinctively toward the dark magnetic pull of the shoreline. The path beneath your feet is a winding ribbon of ghostly gray, illuminated only by the thin, fragile sliver of the moon hanging high above the black, jagged silhouettes of the cathedral pines. As you reach the edge of the water, the forest canopy opens up to reveal the vast obsidian expanse of the lake. It is a sheet of black glass, so still, and so geometrically perfect, that it feels like standing on the precarious edge of a silent liquid universe, suspended between two infinite heavens. You walk onto the old wooden pier, the weathered cedar planks offering a slow, rhythmic thump, 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 thump beneath your feet, a deep wooden vibration that travels up through your soles and settles into the very marrow of your bones. The wood is cool, porous, and slightly damp with the rising evening mist, smelling of Silver Lake algae, old iron boat ties, and sun-bleached timber that has spent 60 years absorbing the mountain light. You reach the very end of the pier, where the wood meets the open dark, and you sit down slowly, dangling your legs over the edge. You feel the empty, cool space between your feet and the black surface of the water, a sensation of weightlessness that begins to anchor your frantic mind. Below you, the lake makes a rhythmic, hypnotic slap, lap, slap against the moss-covered wooden pilings, a liquid heartbeat that has been counting the seconds of this valley for centuries, long before the first cabin was ever hewn from the woods. You look up, and the sheer, overwhelming scale of the night sky in the year 1984 takes your breath away. Without the orange, artificial haze of modern city lights or the digital glow of the future, the sky is a crowded, shimmering tapestry of impossible, terrifying depth. The Milky Way stretches across the zenith like a spilled river of powdered white diamonds, a celestial road of ancient light leading back to the very beginning of time. You find yourself tracing the familiar constellations Orion the Hunter, the Great Bear, the shimmering Pleiades, their ancient cold light traveling across vast, inconceivable light years just to touch your skin in this specific quiet moment at Sunset Cove. The silence here is profound, heavy, and absolute. Yet it is broken by the most iconic, haunting sound of the North Woods, the call of a lone loon. It starts as a low morning warble from somewhere across the unseen bay, a hauntingly beautiful melody that rises and falls like a lonely flute played in the center of a vast, empty stone cathedral. The sound carries over the water with perfect crystalline clarity, echoing off the distant granite cliffs before fading slowly, reluctantly, into the velvet dark. It is a sound that speaks of ancient things, of prehistoric wilderness, and total, sacred solitude. And yet, it makes you feel deeply, strangely at peace with your own existence. You realize in this moment that the heavy, suffocating anxiety about your future, the university applications waiting on your desk at home, the heavy expectations of your parents, the gnawing fear of becoming someone in the eyes of society, has completely and utterly dissolved in the cool night air. Out here, under the indifferent silver watch of the stars, those voices of the outside world have no power. They are small, insignificant flickers of static, compared to the eternal, rhythmic breathing of the lake and the slow rotation of the earth. You understand, with a sudden and quiet clarity that settles in your chest like a warm stone, that the future doesn't exist yet. It is a phantom. Only this summer matters. Only this cold water, this silver air, and this monumental, healing silence. You lie back fully on the cool, silver-gray planks of the pier, resting your head on the weathered wood and staring straight up into the infinite, pulsing void. The wooden surface beneath you feels solid, honest, and unyielding, a physical anchor in a world of shifting, indigo shadows. The stars seem to pulse in perfect time with the rhythmic lapping of the water against the pilings, a synchronized dance of light and sound that lulls your mind into a state of total unburdened stillness. You feel the sweet, sharp melancholy of the passing time, the realization that you are standing on the fragile, disappearing threshold of your own youth. But it is a gentle, welcoming melancholy, like the final fading notes of a favorite song playing on a worn-out, hissing cassette tape. You are safe. You are hidden from the world. You are part of the landscape, no different from the stones or the trees. Your breathing slows down further, matching the slow, prehistoric pace of the water against the wood. Each exhale releases a bit more of the day's accumulated fatigue, letting it drift away like smoke into the indigo dark. As you close your eyes, letting the cool, damp mist of the lake settle over your face like a protective veil, you hear a soft, rhythmic crunching of gravel from the distant shore. You don't need to open your eyes to know who it is. The group is gathering in the shadows. The silence of the night is about to be replaced by a different kind of magic, the magic of shared secrets, whispered plans, and late-night rebellion. You feel a small secret smile touch your lips as you remember the clandestine plan, whispered earlier in the amber shadows of the mess hall. The night isn't over. It is simply shifting into its final, most secretive and enchanted phase. You hear Matthew's low, grounding voice, the faint metallic jingle of Joey's keys, and the heavy rhythmic clatter of Raven's silver chains as they approach the water's edge. The summer at Sunset Cove is just beginning to breathe, and for the first time in your life, you feel you are exactly where you belong. You hit a long, final breath of the silver air, hitch your duffel bag onto your shoulder, and prepare to leave the safety of the camp for the mysteries that lie waiting beyond the dark, whispering tree line. You are ready to step into the dark, for you know now that the dark is where the best stories are kept. The transition from the solid, grounded wood of the pier to the hollow, metallic hum of the van is seamless and silent, a quiet shift in the very texture of the night. You move like collective shadows among shadows, your group a single breath held tight against the deep indigo dark of the towering trees. There is a primal electric thrill in the secrecy of it, the way Matthew eases the heavy weathered door of the station wagon, shut with a metallic click so soft it is immediately swallowed by the restless rustle of the pines. You climb into the back, the vinyl seats cool, smooth, and smelling of old road maps, and the lingering sweetness of the day's trapped heat. No one speaks. The silence is a pact, a sacred agreement that the rules of Sunset Cove are currently suspended in the midnight air. Matthew shifts the van into gear, and you begin to roll forward with a slow, heavy deliberation, moving with the headlights off, navigating the winding dirt path by the silver, ghostly glow of the moon alone. The trees lean in from both sides, their branches reaching out like dark, spindly fingers to brush against the roof in a long, rhythmic sweep that sounds like a secret being whispered in a crowded, dusty room. As the van clears the camp's heavy timber archway and finally hits the smooth, black asphalt of the main highway, the world begins to expand and blur into a dreamscape. The motion of the car is a slow, kinetic lullaby, a side-to-back swaying that coaxes the last remnants of stubborn consciousness from your heavy limbs. You are drifting now, the van a metal cocoon moving through a vast sea of prehistoric timber. The wind through the half-open vents carries the sharp scent of wild jasmine and cooling tar, an olfactory map of the late-night mountains in 1984. You lean your head against the cool glass of the window, watching the silver-gray silhouettes of the forest strobe past in a rhythmic, hypnotic blur of motion. The journey feels entirely timeless, a bridge made of shadows between the grounded reality of the camp and the shimmering dreamscape of your destination. The arrival at the Starlight Drive-In is marked by a sudden, flickering brilliance that cuts through the dark like a silent beacon. It is a cathedral of light standing in the middle of the wilderness, a massive, towering screen that looms over a sea of parked cars like a glowing monument to the summer. Matthew finds a spot near the back, far from the back, flickering neon of the concession stand, and kills the engine with a soft, final shudder. The silence that follows is immediately filled by the low-frequency hum of the outdoor speakers, a tinny, rhythmic crackle that carries the distant screams and haunting synthesizers of Camp Bloodbath, the midnight slasher flick playing on the screen. The light from the projector is a living thing, a pulsing, rhythmic strobe of electric blue, blood red, and pale moonlight that washes over the interior of the van, painting the faces of your friends in cinematic shades of violet and deep shadow. You watch the screen with heavy half-closed eyes, the plot of the movie dissolving into a series of beautiful abstract shapes and colors. The flickering light catches the silver of Raven's jewelry, making it dance like cold sparks of starlight, while the glow softens the jagged edges of her hair until she looks like a figure from a silent film. The dialogue is a distant, muffled murmur, a rhythmic cadence of voices that you no longer need to understand or follow. It is the ultimate visual payoff of the day, the dreamlike freedom of being exactly where you aren't supposed to be, surrounded by the people who make the world feel safe and infinite. The scent of buttered popcorn and distant diesel exhaust drifts through the air, a nostalgic, heavy perfume that anchors you to this specific vanishing moment in the heart of the 80s. One by one, the group begins to succumb to the heavy rhythm of the night. You watch as Paige's head slowly lolls onto Matthew's shoulder, her breathing deepening into a steady, oceanic pace that matches the movement of the trees outside. Joey is already gone, sprawled across the back bench with his mouth slightly open, his hand still resting on a bag of half-eaten pretzels, as if he fell asleep mid-sentence. Even Raven, the dark sorceress of the shadows, has let her guard down at last. Her head is tilted back against the window, the deep blue of her hair blending into the deep indigo of the night sky. The intimacy of the van is absolute, a shared, quiet surrender to the beautiful exhaustion of a perfect day. You feel the weight of your own eyelids, the flickering light of the screen becoming a rhythmic, visual pulse that moves in perfect time with your own slowing heartbeat. As the movie reaches its frantic, synthesized climax, the sound of the world outside seems to retreat into a far-off distance, leaving only the steady mechanical hum of the film projector behind. It is a low, comforting drone, a sonic anchor that reminds you of the permanence of this night. The slap 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 of the film hitting the reel is a domestic metallic music that reinforces the safety of your dark cocoon. The violence on the screen is just light and shadow now, powerless against the profound heavy peace of the van. You are drifting further away now. The boundary between the movie on the screen and the dreams in your head beginning to dissolve into a single, shimmering texture of violet, silver, and black. The sun will rise again tomorrow, and the bronze dinner bell will ring, and the lake will turn back into a sapphire jewel. But for now, there is only this. There is only the stillness and the light. The projector continues its tireless rhythmic work, casting long, sweeping shadows across the dashboard. You feel a soft, quiet promise form in the very back of your mind, a silent oath to the group, to the camp, and to the stars that watched you tonight. You will do it all again tomorrow. You will roll the dice again. You will find the magic in the shadows once more. But those thoughts are fading now, becoming as thin and translucent as the film itself. The indigo dark of the mountains reaches in to wrap around the van, pulling you deeper and deeper into the dream. The flickering light on the screen grows dimmer and softer, the vibrant colors fading into a peaceful, monochromatic gray. Your breathing matches the slow, rhythmic hum of the film reel, a final, peaceful synchronization with the mechanical heart of 1984. The summer is a vast, open book, and you are finally resting on a page of pure, unburdened light. You let go of the last, fraying thread of the waking world, sinking into the velvet dark, safe in the knowledge that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Tomorrow is a long way off, hidden behind the sunrise. Tonight, there is only the flickering screen, the sleeping friends, and the eternal quiet promise of Sunset Cove. Sleep now. The movie is almost over, and the dream is just beginning. The world has slowed to a fragile rhythmic pulse as the station wagon rolls back into the heart of Sunset Cove, its engine finally falling with a faint, metallic sigh that drifts into the mist. You find yourself walking back toward the familiar, weathered timber of Cabin 8, the grass cool and silver slick with a heavy layer of pre-dawn dew. The air here is different now. It is heavier, thicker with the scent of wet cedar, ancient pine needles, and a profound, unshakable rest. You push open the heavy door, its long, low-pitched creak sounding like a tired welcome home. Inside, the darkness is soft and velvety, a protective cocoon that separates you from the infinity of the outside world. You move with a slow, instinctive grace, guided by the pale moonlight filtering through the dusty screens as you climb back into your bunk. The old springs offer a single, familiar, and comforting groan-a sound that has echoed in this room for 60 summers. As you settle in, your hand reaches out into the cool shadows, brushing against the soft, worn-out fur of the plush wolf toy tucked at the corner of your pillow, a small, tangible piece of home that feels more real than the stars themselves. You pull the heavy, coarse wool blanket up to your chin, the physical weight of it acting as a grounding anchor, pinning you gently to the mattress and signaling to your body that the day is officially, finally over. Outside, the great forest of the valley is breathing. You lie perfectly still, identifying the night sounds with a sleepy, rhythmic precision. The distant hollow hoo of a great horned owl echoing from the high ridges, the soft, oceanic sigh of the wind as it combs through the ancient needles of the pines, and the rhythmic tink of the cabin logs as they adjust to the deep chill of the mountain night. It is a vast, natural symphony of safety. You are tucked away, shielded from the future, guarded by the deep history of the cove. But just as your mind begins to fully let go, dissolving into the first gray layers of a dream, a tiny, familiar sound catches the very edge of your consciousness. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It is that same frantic, intelligent scratching from beneath the floorboards. Was it real? Or was it just a fragment of an old memory leaking into the room from the wood itself? You find yourself smiling into the darkness, your eyelids far too heavy to open, your heart too peaceful to worry. Whatever it is, a ghost of 1924, a curious forest creature, or just the house breathing it belongs to the mystery of the summer. It is a secret you will investigate tomorrow, and the day after that, and for all the summers to come. Good night, counselor. A low, husky voice seems to whisper through the cracks in the cedar walls. Or perhaps it is just the wind mimicking the memory of Raven's goodbye. The camp is safe. Oh. The lake is still. The monsters are only stories. You are exactly where you are meant to be. The flickering neon memories of 1984, the laughter in the mess hall, and the silver light of the pier all fade into a single steady point of light, then vanish entirely. There is only the breath of the forest now, only the deep, honest peace of the wood, only the heavy, dreamless sleep of Sunset Cove. You are drifting, falling into the amber silence of the valley.